As Western countries prepare to re-enter into negotiations with Iran over the nuclear issue, powerful political circles in Washington, those who favor coexistence with Iran, are increasingly trying to influence U.S. public opinion and foreign policy. For example, Khajehpour, an Iranian oil consultant, addresses the Woodrow Wilson Center. Vali Nasr makes demand for the lifting of sanctions and security guarantees on the Iranian regime. Former Senator Chuck Hagel hints at behind-the-scenes talk taking place between the U.S. and Iran. Barbara Slavin details Obama's goodwill gestures towards Tehran. A new bill is introduced in Congress aimed at easing talks between U.S. diplomats and Iranian regime officials. The Woodrow Wilson Center in Washington recently invited Bijan Khajehpour, an Iranian oil consultant, to discuss the Iranian parliamentary elections and to analyze its impact on U.S.-Iran relations. Khajehpour is both co-founder and chairman of the IT Bahar Group, a consulting firm in Tehran which helps foreign companies, in particular oil giants, do business with Iran.
Good afternoon. I'm Hale Esfandiari. I run the Middle East program at the Wilson Center. It's a great pleasure to welcome Bijan Khajehpour. I think it must be the fourth or the fifth time or maybe more. Most of you know Mr. Khajehpour, but let me give you a brief bio. He's the managing partner of Atiyeh International, the Vienna-based international arm of the Atiyeh Group of Companies, which is a group of strategic consulting firms based in Tehran, Iran.
Further information about the IT Bahar Group's activities and relationship with the regime is provided in the gallery section of the Iranian Forum website. In his speech, Khajehpour claimed that the Iranian people participated enthusiastically and widely in the election, responding positively to the regime's appeal.
The regime equating the participation in the elections to securing the future of Iran. Obviously, for the regime, it was a sign of legitimacy, and they translated this sign of legitimacy into a sort of a deterrence against foreign attacks. Basically, the feeling was if the regime has enough popular support, it won't be attacked or it won't be put under pressure. And that discourse actually worked on many people. So many Iranians actually voted not because they were excited about the candidates, but because they were concerned about the negative consequences of greater confrontation with Western countries.
He then reiterated the favorite theme of the pro-engagement circles, that whatever happens in Tehran, the regime is ready to open up to U.S. overtures. Khajehpour assured his listeners that the election results created a more favorable environment for U.S.-Iran rapprochements, since Khamenei now feels more powerful, thus more comfortable in dealing with the U.S.
You know, there is always a direct relationship between how strong and how consolidated the regime feels domestically and how it acts externally. So the Iranian regime in general doesn't like to act out of a position of weakness. So some of the developments of the past couple of years were potentially related to the 2009 elections and to the unrest and to the sort of clampdown on the opposition that followed those elections. Today, Iran can say, well, we went through another national election. There was no unrest. There were no claims of voter irregularities. My feeling is that there could be an opening, and in my view, it's not a coincidence that Ayatollah Khamenei actually made a positive reference to President Obama this morning in Iran by saying the fact that President Obama said war is not is not what on his I don't know what the exact wording was, but the war is not an option right now, or he's not thinking of war right now. That shows that there is some movement towards a middle ground potentially in negotiations.
Mullah supporters in Washington and their army of Iran experts have once again employed their favorite strategy, using the fear of war to bolster their agenda of unlimited and unconditional appeasement with Tehran. Vali Nasr, one such expert, recently published an article in Bloomberg urging President Obama to go the whole mile on Iran diplomacy, as if the U.S. has not done that before. Nasr praised Obama for skillfully shifting the debate on Iran, for pushing back against the idle talk of war, and for making the case for diplomacy against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He could not hide his joy upon hearing Obama's words that an opportunity remains for diplomacy to succeed. His happiness heightens when quoting Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's good words for Obama, which Nasr regards as a clear signal to the international community that Iran would not cross Obama's red line. To encourage Obama to go the extra mile, he recalls the parliamentary elections recently held in Iran, but does not mention the large popular boycott. Instead, he writes that Iran's parliamentary elections to some extent repaired the political damage, the appearance of normality on voting day this month, and the mandate Khamenei received when his supporters trust those of President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad have left the supreme leader stronger. Ahmadinejad's drubbings means there is now only one decision maker in Tehran, and to everyone's relief, it is not Ahmadinejad. Nasr believes that the West should lift sanctions to persuade the Mullahs to come back to the table. He goes even further and asks Obama to couple the lifting of sanctions with more carrots, such as security guarantees to the Iranian regime. Indeed, he warns that Iran will not drop its nuclear ambitions unless it feels secure in the region, that it's something the U.S. can address, and it is why talking to Iran about its nuclear program cannot be divorced from a broader conversation about regional security. Barbara Slavin, a journalist and senior fellow at the Atlantic Council South Asia Center, where she is an Iran expert and a member of the Iran Task Force, preached coexistence with the Iranian regime. In her latest article titled, "Subtle Signs Obama's Diplomacy May Work on Iran," she wrote that Chuck Hagel, a former senator from Nebraska who co-chairs Obama's Intelligence Advisory Board and heads the Atlantic Council, a Washington think tank, hinted that back-channel talks between the United States and Iran are already occurring. She states that both sides are seeking to reduce tensions and indicates recent examples of diplomatic signaling between the two countries, such as the Iranian decision to suspend the death sentence of Amir Hekamati, an Iranian-American Marine jailed in Tehran. The U.S. State Department's policy of maintaining the MEK on the terror list is, according to Slavin, a friendly signal towards Tehran by Obama. Slavin finds the U.S. Treasury Department's decision to investigate several former senior American officials who have spoken in favor of the opposition group MEK to be another indication that Washington is trying to reduce tensions with Iran. Quoting Trita Parsi and Vali Nasr, two analysts who favor increased U.S. ties with Iran, Slavin concludes that successful parliamentary elections in Iran and friendly signals between Iran and the U.S. have created such a favorable environment that negotiations could start as soon as April. Bill H.R. 4137, the Prevent Iran from Acquiring Nuclear Weapons and Stop War Through Diplomacy Act, was recently introduced by Congresswoman Barbara Lee of California, along with 9 other Democrats and 1 Republican. Current law prevents officers and employees of the State Department from making any direct contact with Iranian representatives without prior authorization by the Secretary of State. Bill H.R. 4137 would eliminate this no-contact policy. It also calls for the establishment of an office in the Department of State to provide diplomats with channels of contact with the Iranian regime. This bill also recommends that President Obama hold negotiations with Iran with no preconditions. Congresswoman Lee tries to mask the fact that in 2009, Obama ignored the Iranian uprising, attempted negotiations with the regime, and failed to get anything in return. In fact, The current sanctions against Iran are the results of this failure. Bill H.R. 4137 will repeat the same mistake that Obama and his predecessors made. It will lift pressures from this regime and offer them more carrots.